Well, this morning I want to be walking through a concept I've been thinking about for a while, coming from many different discussions, kind of from different areas, dealing with things like loneliness, like the frustrations and hurts of just being in a community and being around people, and especially how we are working to reach the lost. There is in our country, and it's been named by a few different people so far, a loneliness epidemic. That more people today are feeling depressed, are feeling particularly oppressed by their level of loneliness. Now there's a lot of factors that go into that, and it depends on who you're talking to and what those may be, and I think it's going to be different from person to person. I think a lot of that comes from a loss of natural communities like close-knit families and things like church that people just are no longer a part of. I think it has a lot to do with the promotion of self-love and selfishness to this point of virtue within our culture. If ever everyone is so inwardly focused, what makes me happy? How do I feel loved by the people around me? And there's no effort to love those around them, to be giving of themselves. I think we can look at things like the rise of technology that has allowed us to do everything we need within our home. We never have to leave. I even think about something as simple as playing video games. When I was in high school, if we were going to play video games with our friends, we all had to be in the same room. And we could play games together. We can do that. And now I don't have to. It's great because I can play with my friends or my siblings that live on the other side of the country. But at the same time, I never even sit down with my friends who are here and play games with them like that anymore. I think there is a rise in fake communities. And what I mean by that is people can get together very easily through the internet and things like that. They can find people who have a mutual love of an event or an activity. But there's nothing that really breeds closeness. So though you can show up to this event or go to this group week after week, the focus is always on that event or that activity, and there's nothing to breed real closeness. And so even in those situations, people often feel lonely. In counseling, if I were to be speaking with someone dealing with this kind of loneliness, my response would immediately be, well, what are you doing to serve others? You're feeling lonely, okay. What are you doing other than waiting for somebody to come to you? Because so often I think that is the case, that in loneliness, people are so worried about self. I feel lonely, I feel isolated, I feel like nobody cares about me. Well, do you care about anybody else? What are you doing to pursue others? You want someone to invite you to their house to have dinner and board games. You want someone to invite you along to this event. What are you doing to invite them? This is very much the principle of loving your neighbor as yourself. It's often taken, this principle is often taken as the kind of live and let live sort of thing. I don't remember, yeah, I did. This live and let live sort of thing. Love your neighbor as yourself means do unto others only what you would want them to do to you. And it comes down to this idea as we teach it to our children, don't hit your brother because you wouldn't want him to hit you. That's not the idea. Love your neighbor as yourself means everything that you would want your neighbor to do for you, you should be doing for them. What all do you want them to do for you? Invite you over to dinner. Invite you to the event. Focus their time and their effort on you, making sure you feel loved and appreciated and connected. Well, if the roles were reversed, what can you do for them? And don't play games to get out of things either. You know what you want them to do. That's what you should be doing. Do you want to be invited to join the activity? Well, what are you doing to make sure that they feel invited into that activity? Do you want to be asked how your day is going? Well, have you asked how their day is going? Do you want to feel cared about, concerned over? What are you doing to make sure they feel cared about, concerned for? The pain of loneliness often comes because we are so focused on my needs aren't being met. And it's about me, waiting for other people to come and fill those desires. Loving your neighbor as yourself means being focused outwardly rather than inwardly. We can serve, minister, and love others the way we want them to do that to us. Now, we often can and sometimes do that and still feel lonely. But the first question we should always be asking is, what about your own heart? Are you serving God? Are you loving God and loving others the way He has called you to first? And then you get to worry about your needs. That's what it means to love your neighbor as yourself. Now, when we do that, we oftentimes end up with our needs being met. A real solid relationship, whether it's friends or marriage or family or church, should begin with both sides caring more about serving and sacrificing for the other person than getting their own needs met. As long as both people are working to glorify God, and those desires that they are meeting are God-glorifying desires, when both people are doing that, then both people's needs are being cared for and met. Can you imagine a marriage like that, where both spouses have that goal in mind? Not worrying about, not thinking about their own needs, but only about their spouse. The husband not thinking about what he wants or desires, but only caring about, concerned about loving his wife, making sure her needs are met, her desires are met. He comes home after a hard day's work and walks through the door knowing that his wife has also had a long day at home, juggling the many household chores and kids. And as soon as he walks through the door, his immediate concern is there anything I can do to help around the house? Can I do the dishes? Can I deal with the kids? Can I fold laundry? And at the same time, the wife knows how hard his day has been. She knows that the boss has been writing him about that big project, or that he's been stressed about this upcoming deadline, that he's been putting in these extra long hours because of this difficult time that they're in. So as soon as she walks through the door, before he can open his mouth to offer to help, she says, no, go sit down for a few minutes. I want you to go relax. And what you end up with is, instead of a fight of, hey, I need my needs met, it's a fight of, how can I meet yours? A very loving fight. We're going to call it even that. And then there can be that discussion, okay, I really am struggling right now. It was a really hard day. Can I have a few minutes? That would be wonderful. But I'm going to take those few minutes to relax and to de-stress with the mind of, okay, now I can get up and I can go help. And making sure that tomorrow when the husband walks through the door that, okay, you know what, I got to sit yesterday, so maybe I can make sure to help her today. Now, let me snap you out of that fantasy for a minute. I do think it's very possible. In fact, I think that's how a marriage is supposed to look, and I think that's how every relationship, especially one lived before God, living out those principles of loving God and loving your neighbor, any relationship can work like that. And imagine what it would be if all of your relationships were lived that way. But we're looking this morning at the topic of evangelism. As we looked at last week in Paul's statement about living out his Christian freedom, living out his Christian liberty with this idea of becoming all things to all men so that I might by all means save some. some. So often as a church and as believers, our picture of evangelism, and I think this has largely been due to this self-focus, this love of self, this selfishness as a worldview, as a virtue, has grown up, or at the very least it has come down to, well, you need to keep your Christian stuff to yourself. And as believers, we've agreed to that. That evangelism is about you living your life and being an example to others, waiting for them to ask you questions. Why is your life different? Why do you live this way? And we should live our lives in a way that draws people's attention. Don't get me wrong, we need to adorn the gospel of God with our behavior. But that's a very passive mindset when it comes to evangelism. A very self-focused form of evangelism. What are you doing to pursue those in the community? They may see something in your life, but they may have no desire or no courage to ask what's different. Have you said anything to them? Do they know what's different, whether they can put their finger on it or not? Have you told them? And more importantly, do they feel like you care about them? Or are you more concerned with yourself? And this morning I want to look at this concept, again, that's kind of been swimming around in my head for a while now. This idea of the difference between being welcoming and being inviting. Now, those sound like the same thing, right? No. At least how I'm going to define them. They are different. Welcoming is about allowing someone to make a place in our church. And I think the same thing applies to your friend group, to your life in general. People can be very welcoming, easy to approach. Those are good things. But by definition, they're very passive. Inviting is about making a place for the other person and wanting to bring them into that place in your life. And so the question that I want us to think about, and again, both as a church but also individually, are we welcoming people to make a place in our church, in our lives, or are we creating a place for them and inviting them into it? Now, to start with, let's look at what unwelcoming groups or a church would look like. This, I think, is a little bit easier to define. Unwelcoming, whether it's perceived or actual. You may have all the right words to say. You may have all the right things that your people know how to respond, but you can still be very unwelcoming. And ultimately, it makes no difference whether you're intentionally being unwelcoming or people just see it that way. It comes from, I think, a lot of different places, and you can see this in different church, different groups, whatever else. We often, or the phrase is out there if you're getting into a new thing, if you want to learn about Lord of the Rings or whatever it might be, that somebody is gatekeeping. They're working to keep the new people out because you just don't know enough. You don't get to be a part of our group. But there's often that attitude of superiority or exclusiveness in an unwelcoming group. You're not good enough to join us. Again, whether it's intentional or simply perceived, there can be a distrust of strangers. This is often called a siege mentality. You get this in a lot of churches, you get this in a lot of cults especially, where there's this mindset is everybody is against us. Everybody's out to get us. It's kind of that victim mentality taken to an extreme. And so there is a natural distrust of strangers, distrust of others. We don't want you coming in because we're afraid of what you might do. There can be a lot of conflict and negativity within that church. Somebody comes in and they see everybody glaring at each other, nobody wanting to really talk to each other, no one trusting each other. Who would want to go into a group like that? Unwelcoming because nobody wants to get involved in something like that. And finally, there can be a lot of favoritism shown. James warns against this specifically in James chapter 2. My brethren, do not hold your faith in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ with an attitude of personal favoritism. For if a man comes into your assembly with gold rings and is dressed in fine clothes, and there also comes a poor man in dirty clothes, and you pay special attention to the one who is wearing fine clothes and say, here, you sit in this good place, and you say to the poor man, you stand over there, or you can sit at my feet. You might be very welcoming, even inviting to certain people, but very unwelcoming to others. And those are going to show. There can be things within a church, like strange doctrines or practices or traditions that end up keeping people at arm's length. This can be intentional, but it can just be traditions that are so ingrained into the people that grew up in that group that they don't know that it's weird to everybody else. You know how to do it because you grew up doing it or you've been in it for so long. But the new person coming in, it can be very difficult to understand. And that can be something like, as we do every Sunday, pray the Lord's Prayer together. And we talked about this as a board when we were considering moving up here, and we're looking at, are there things that we're doing? Are there road bumps that we're putting in the way of a new person? Well, we want to continue praying the Lord's Prayer together. We think there's a lot of good and important aspects to that. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but what can we do to make sure people can be as welcomed into that as possible? So that's why we put the words up on the screen. Most people know. But the few who don't, we want to make sure they are able to participate even if it's something new or different. And you can be very unwelcoming in the way that you live out those traditions, and so it's something to be mindful of as well. There are a lot of cliques that can form in a church. This can build on those attitudes of superiority, the distrust, the conflict. You end up with the different groups. We're seeing that in the book of 1 Corinthians. Paul is dealing with this separation, this tribalism within the church. I'm of Paul, I'm of Apollos. And you end up with these groups. And again, it can be intentional or not, but ultimately it doesn't matter. If people come in and they feel like everyone's separated into their own little groups and they're not going to be welcoming, not going to be inviting into those groups, then why would I want to join? If I got to put all the effort into figuring out how to be a part of not just the church, but one of the little groups in the church, it's a whole other level of difficulty to deal with. And there can be just that not allowing someone to make a place for themselves within the group. Always questioning their motives, always questioning their abilities, just making them feel, generally, unwanted. So that's an unwelcoming church. Now, I don't think we have that problem. Something to be mindful of, that you can appear unwelcoming whether you want to be or not. And that's something to be consciously thinking of. Is there something that we are doing that is making it difficult for someone to join our group, to be a part of our church? If it's something as simple as putting the words to the Lord's Prayer up on the screen. Is there anything that is a road bump on their path? That's being unwelcoming. So being welcoming means we want to make sure we don't have any of those problems. We don't want anything that is negative. We don't want any of those problems of the unwelcoming church. We want to have good group dynamics, good communication, good trust, We don't want to show any sort of favoritism. We don't want to make it difficult in any way, shape, or form for the stranger or the visitor to feel like they can be a part of the group. We make those traditions to a minimum as best as possible, or at least easily explain. And I think it also means genuinely welcoming people. I don't know if any of you read the Babylon Bee, but they always have, every couple of months, some joke or another about the church greeters. One of them, not too long ago, was Trump secures the border by sending down church greeters. Now, is having a church greeter wrong? No, of course not, but the idea for so many is that it's that awkward, fake, plastered-on smile. We're so glad you're here! And it makes everybody have this idea that as soon as I walk in the church, everybody's happy. Everybody's having a great time. Instead of the church being the place of people who are broken, who are struggling. I'm not saying we need to have church greeters, but it does mean being ready and willing to genuinely and enthusiastically, because you truly care, greet the new person. Now again, it's easier in our group here because you can't not be noticed. And again, I think we generally do a good job of this. I think it's something to be mindful of. But even still, are we welcoming or are we inviting? And the difference comes down to where the work comes from. The primary difference between being welcoming and being inviting, as I'm defining it for us today, is are you allowing the new person to make a place, or are you making a place for them? The welcoming says you are welcome to make a place in our group. And we're going to try to make it easy for you to make your place here amongst us. But ultimately it says it's up to you to join. It's up to you to make your place. It puts all of the work, all of the thought power, all of the stress, all of the fear of the unknown on the person joining the group. Welcome, you may be very welcoming, but welcoming is passive. Where inviting says, how can I make a place for you in our group? The goal is not about just making it easy for the person to join, but instead finding a way to get them to join. It places all of the work, all of the thought power, all of the stress, all of the fear of the unknown on the group who's wanting to make a place for them. Ultimately, it's the idea of pursuing rather than waiting to be pursued. Again, let me give an example here. A group of people getting together for an event, a hunting day, a shopping trip, a basketball game, or volleyball, or golf, or whatever the event is. And I'm sure you have all experienced something like this. It's a group that you would normally want to be a part of, that you're interested in joining, but maybe you're just kind of on the peripheral. You're on the outskirts of that group. Maybe that group would be happy for anyone to join, and they're talking about this event openly, or you overhear them talking about it, but no one invited you specifically. Again, the group may be welcoming, but it's up to you to ask to join the group, to join the event. How hard is that to do? Am I encroaching? Is it really open to anyone, or are they just saying that? What if they say no? Or what if they look at me disappointed that I asked to join? Oh, you want to come? Yeah, that's fine. Or after the event, they're all talking about it again, and someone says, oh, you should have come. How hard is that to hear? You should have come. We had so much fun. It can be heartbreaking. I didn't know I was invited. I didn't know you wanted me to go. I didn't even know I could go. Now, again, sometimes it is the issue of the group being unwelcoming, but I think, and especially amongst believers, it is often the issue of people not thinking of those around them. Ultimately, it is a lack of love, a sin of omission, rather than a sin of commission. It wasn't wrong because I actively thought about not wanting you to come, but it was wrong because I didn't think about you at all. And again, this comes down to that difference of waiting to be pursued versus being the pursuer. Now again, as I mentioned in James, we sometimes do this naturally. When the person has something that they can do for us, we will, of course, pursue them. When they have money, when they have popularity, when they have influence, oh, this person would be a great benefit to our group, so of course we're going to pursue them. Which comes with its own problem, because the rich person, the popular person, is just worrying, just wondering, do they want me to join their group because of what I can bring, or do they actually want me? So we need to make sure that that person feels pursued not for personal gain, but because we care about them, and we're ready and willing and desiring to have them join our group so that we can continue to serve them and to love them. But I think the vast majority of people don't fall into that category. Most people are waiting, which is where so much loneliness comes from. Most people want to be a part of the group. In fact, I think it's very natural. This desire to be in the group, desire to be part of the community. I believe it is human nature. God created us to be social creatures. To be a part of a family, to be a part of a marriage, to be a part of a church. To care about those around us and to be cared for. The desire to be a part of the group, the desire to be appreciated, to be loved, to be pursued is not a sinful one. It's natural. Though it can, of course, become sinful when we place a level of importance on it. What we're willing to do to accomplish that, to obtain that goal, can make that desire sinful. And there's lots of ways that people do that. Try to gain abilities, try to gain intelligence, go by looks, go by charisma, go by money, whatever it may be. It can reach a level of sinfulness, to be sure, but the base desire to be a part of the group is natural to human beings. It's how God created us to be. And so the question is, how are we loving others? How are we fulfilling that desire, that need within people? What does it look like for us as a church? First, I think in serving and loving one another. It needs to start within the family. Do each of us feel loved and appreciated and cared for, thought about, invited? Are we as brothers and sisters in Christ putting each other first, looking to fulfill those needs, to serve one another? Or are we simply looking to be fulfilled, to be served? Then I think we need to make sure it is our goal not just to be welcoming when somebody comes through the doors of our church, when they join for service. We do need to make it easy for them to join, to be sure. Things to be thinking about. Are there road bumps in the way? Are there obstacles that we can take out? But more than that, are we actively pursuing them? Do they feel like we truly care that they came? And that we want to love them and to pursue them, to make a place for them. Not just waiting for them to put the work in to make a place with us. And then how do we do that outside the church? How do we do that in evangelism? Are we just focused on creating programs that will build it and they will come idea? If we're the most attractive church, then people will want to come to us. Or are we going to them? Are we pursuing them? This is what Paul was talking about last week. I become all things to all people. The Jew will become like a Jew. To the Gentile, become like a Gentile. I'm going where they are. Not waiting for them to come to me. What are you doing not just to be available if someone comes to ask you a question? What are you doing to ask them? What are you doing to make sure that they know that you care about them? That you've been thinking about them? That you're interested and concerned about them? Now, as I mentioned last week, I think it's something that we need to be careful that we're fitting those right balances. There is a time and a place to have your group, to be rejuvenated, to be encouraged within your group. If you even look at Jesus and the disciples, he went away with his 12 disciples, separated from the crowds at times. And we need to have that closeness. He even had within that his inner three, Peter, James, and John, where he spent special time with those three individually. There are times for that, to be sure. But what are we doing to pursue those around us? To be active in inviting people to the gospel, inviting people into the church, to make a place for them, rather than just waiting for them to make a place. And what are we doing to pursue people in our own lives? Again, not waiting for them to hopefully invite us along, but looking to invite them into our lives. So, my first question for this morning comes right along that line. How do we make sure that we are looking to pursue others in the church, to fill the needs and serve rather than just looking to be served? And I do mean that within the church, within the family. It starts at home. How do we make sure the people in our church are feeling pursued?
I think it takes some effort, and I need to sit and think for a while about who are the people that we need to be more intentional with about building relationships. And have to be complicated, but inviting people over for supper or inviting them along on whatever we're doing. It doesn't have to be something special that we're creating. We don't need more events necessarily. That could be more intentional and mindful about about doing it. For me, it's like, I just need to take 15 minutes and sit down and think, well, how can I do this? Because if I don't, then it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, I think that's the starting point right there, is that we have to be actively thinking about it. We have to take the time to be thinking about, all right, who is around me that I need to be reaching out to, I need to be serving, I can be. I think, and it's not something that I had time to go through, though I was thinking about it, is the circles of responsibility, the circle of involvement or things like that. The closer in they are, the more important they should be in your life and in that focus. It's not saying that we shouldn't be involved with global missions, but we can't all go to Hungary. So we start close. And then as we make sure those needs are filled, then we move out to the next circle, and then the next. But it means being actively thinking about it. Who is it within our church, within our family, that needs some extra help?
I think it's just being aware people in their lives. It's really easy to see when people need help when they're going through after surgery, like recovering from a surgery or having a baby. It's really easy to know, especially if you've gone through it yourself, to know that, oh, this was really helping fill these needs. But I think where I miss out, or where I could do better, is the check-ins, and just haven't seen you in a while, or like the text, just asking how they're doing, or call. Up for more than just a text, but just finding those ways to get more personally involved in people's lives, and especially if it's someone that's been distant for a while, just be checking in on them and intentional in knowing what they're going through. Because I think we're so naturally pull away when we're starting to struggle. We don't want people to know that we're having a hard time, but and so when we recognize someone who's been not around for a while, it might be a big indicator that something's going on, or their life just has been busy, and so just a good check-in.
Yeah, making sure, one, that we're thinking about them, that we're thinking through, all right, who else might need to be, but then of course following through that, checking in on people. I agree, it's really easy when those big events come up, when somebody has surgery or they have a baby, and okay, we can get the meal train together, but what about the in-between times? And what about the follow-up? One of the things that in grief counseling is really important is when the person loses someone close to them, the first week or so, of course, you're thinking about them all the time, and you're there for the funeral, and maybe even the week after you bring them food. What about a month later? Or 6 months later? Are you going back to continue to follow up? And those texts, those phone calls, making sure that you're demonstrating that you are thinking about them, concerned about them, caring for them. And Garnet said something about it last week, but we being willing to be vulnerable as well. To let others know, hey, I'm struggling right now. Can you pray for me about this? I need your help. And then they're going to know, okay, you trusted me when you were struggling, I can trust you when I'm struggling. And to be vulnerable is an element of loving the other person. Putting your feelings in their hands. So what about pursuing people in the community? And once in the church, inviting them into the place that we've created for them. not just build it and they will come mentality, but how can I go find them and pull them in and show them, no, we made a space for you. We want you to be here, to be a part of our group. And here's how we've created this space for you.
Maybe sound like too obvious. We actually have to be here to do it, you know? Like, we can invite all the people, but if we're not here, what's, like, hey, walk in the door, like, who, oh, maybe I'm not supposed to be here, you know? Like, it just sounds basic, but like, we do actually have to be, like, a part of it, you know? And obviously, there's things that come up and there's times when they're gone. It's not saying that like we can't have minutes, you know, but like it is like if we're going to like let's say CJ invited someone to come here today and like we're all gone and she'd be like, well, normally there's people you know, like, I mean it just sounds basic but I just feel like it's true, like we have to be here and be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It starts with wanting to be here ourselves. And I think that's, you know, again, going back to the first question there and being within the church, I mean, that's part of creating that environment that we want to be here. We want to be a part of this group because we know that we're encouraging each other, we're serving each other, we're growing together in our study of Scripture, the songs as we're singing them, that kind of thing. So it starts with wanting to be here, wanting to be a group worth joining, and then actually being here, creating that priority so that people see, oh, this is a group that maybe I do want to join. They want to be there, so I want to be there.
Being new in the community, and especially a community that has ties, like relationships, friendships, family, that just goes back for years and years and years. It's really easy to feel on the outside, just they're in their ways and how they live and things like that. And I think it's become a lot easier to find people that I know just moved here or have, just have moved here than plans. And knowing how hard it can be to get into the community and just and kind of turning them a little bit more and just helping them to figure out Selby a little bit more, what's available or not available, and where you need to go everywhere else, and just trying to be aware of that.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we experience more of because we are transplants. And so being mindful of those people that are struggling to make connections, that can be difficult. And so looking for those people that are on the outside and finding ways to get connected with them and helping them feel connected. I think that is such an important part of this whole concept, is to be looking for the people that feel disconnected. Not to say that, oh, well, they're a part of another church, so we don't pay any attention to them at all, but who are the people that need that connection? Who are the people who most need to hear the gospel, who need to be invited in? I think this is an important concept to be thinking about as a church. And I wanted to go through this as we're leading up to our annual meeting, and to be thinking through as a church, how can we be better serving the community, serving one another, encouraging one another, becoming not passive in the way that we welcome people in, sure, but wait for them to come to us. But instead being active in pursuing others, to show them that we care, to show them that we want them to feel loved and appreciated, to build a place for them. And I think it's a mindset as a church that we need to have, and I think very much as well a mindset we need to have as individuals. It can be easy when we are connected to a good group of people, when we feel part of that community, to become isolated within it. We form our own little clique, our own little group. And it's not that we're unwelcoming, we just aren't looking to expand. And so ultimately we become unwelcoming because people feel, well, can I join that group? Do they want me to join? And so we need to be looking for those opportunities as a church and individually. Who are the people that I can serve? Who are the people that I can reach out to, especially if we're feeling lonely and isolated? Well, I'll bet you they are too. What can I do to build a relationship with them? So, with that, let's close in prayer.